Hi everyone. So only a few of us here. That's fine. I'm going to record the stream anyway. So it's lovely to be back in front of a camera. I haven't done this for a long time. Lovely to see a few of you here. Hey Ryan. Sorry I haven't got back to you yet. I will do at some point. Everyone's been ill this month. So yeah. The whole point of this live stream really is to kind of give you all a an overview of the mechanics in this new game. Um, I think we're kind of officially calling it Nightmare Dicebound now. It's been a bit of a backwards and forwards with the team trying to work out really what the best name for the game is. So we're still pretty early in development, but the main thing is we've been prototyping the experience a lot in Tabletop Simulator, and we want to kind of give all of you a chance to play that version and give us a bit of feedback. We are developing the Unity version at the same time. We were hoping to have that version done for like an early playtest this month, but as I said, October was awful. Everyone got ill. Then this month, Sven has been ill, and he's our only programmer on the team. So things have been going a bit slower than what we had hoped. But at least we're going to give you guys hopefully a chance to try some of the experience. So I don't know how many of you have played games on Tabletop Simulator. It's really good for prototyping bigger game ideas, especially a game like ours where Nightmare Dicebound is influenced by board games, specifically games like Mansions of Madness and some of the other Arkham horror games. So the game kind of combines elements of investigation, gameplay, combat, finding evidence around different scenarios, different cases that you end up going on, and you're trying to piece together kind of a wider story. But the whole point is that the game is quite replayable. So what this prototype essentially shares with you guys is how we're doing some of the potential procedural item placement, interactive object placement. It's very early, as I said, but yeah, you'll see. So I'll run everyone through what we're building here. So this is Tabletop Simulator. You'll see in the top right actually an image. This is a concept piece from the actual the game. So what you're seeing here is what you would see in the video game. But in Tabletop Simulator, obviously things are a bit more chaotic, to put it bluntly. So I'll run through really the different elements of the game. So you have your play space. So the way it works in both the video game and the board game, you only see one room at a time. There might be a mini map, but essentially you'll be exploring different locations. You'll be able to backtrack, and then there's going to be different items that you can interact with. Down here we have your stamina dice. So stamina is used for all interactions, and essentially stamina dice are rolled at the beginning of a round, and then during that round, or during the investigation phase or the combat phase, you spend the dice to do different actions. You then combine those with your core attributes. So depending on the type of interaction, some will require a particular core attribute. Some allow you to use a core attribute as a bonus roll, and others will only use a core attribute. The difference between core attributes and the stamina dice is core attribute dice are rolled when you use them. So that adds a little taste of RNG to the experience. In the bigger game, you'll be able to increase the number of core attributes that you have and the number of dice that you have. We haven't fixed on a kind of a max level yet for each core attribute, but in this prototype, you only have one level. And same with the stamina dice. There's only 4, but in the video game version, you'll be able to upgrade your stamina to have more dice. Moving along, so we have our Omen system. So this is our escalating horror system. Essentially what that means is at the end of every round, well actually at the beginning of every round, an Omen triggers. And omens can affect the gameplay in a number of different ways. They can apply curses and jinxes to your core attributes or to your stamina, and they can affect both the dice itself and the slot that the dice is in, because you can rearrange your dice. They can also affect the environment, and they can affect skill tests of different types. They get pretty nasty as well. So eventually what ends up happening is you, with every round, the omen level increases. Well, it increases on the tracker. And then we have tier 0 omens, which are generally quite basic. A lot of them are kind of just a narrative flavor text, and obviously within the video game version they'll be combined with little narrative elements. But then once you hit kind of tier 2, tier 1, they start to get quite nasty. At tier 2, they start to spawn enemies. At tier 3, they start to buff enemies. In this particular prototype, we're only focusing on the investigation gameplay, so there is no combat. Combat prototype will be coming a bit further down the line. What else we got? You don't have equipment slots, so within the game, you can only use the items that you have equipped. So you'll be picking up weapons, equipable items, and other types of items that can be used, like single-use items like tonics, or say bombs or other things like that. You can only equip items during the prep phase, which generally happens after the omen phase. So in terms of turn order, we have the omen phase, then the prep phase, then the investigation phase, and then usually the investigation and combat phase, and then the enemy phase. This is something we're still trying to work out, but that's the general idea. So I guess let's jump in if no one's got any questions yet. So this particular scenario, you play as a character called Charles Mayhew. He's an investigative journalist, cursed with these strange dice. We'll be explaining a bit more of the narrative a bit further down the line. But essentially, Charles has travelled to this island where he's trying to follow up with a contact of his called Detective Jameson. Jameson has been investigating the source of a strange plague that's been affecting the people in London, and he thinks he's found the source, and he's travelled to this island ahead of Charles. The issue is that he's then sent a letter to Charles saying that something is quite wrong here. So Charles travels here. He's just got here on the boat, and he now needs to find Jameson as kind of the first objective. So let's set up this room. As I said, this is it's quite fiddly. In the tabletop simulator version, a lot of this stuff is automated. In the video game version, so I'm going to just quickly shuffle the dot cards. This determines the layout of this room. I'm going to flip this, and then we'll see what items we need to place. So in position A, we have a container, and position D, we have a container. So let me grab a couple of those. They're over here. So actually, let me just... there we go, coal slack and rusted thingy. So I'll just put these in my inventory here so I can place them easily. And what were the others? It was a... So there's two dock-specific items, B and E. So let's grab those. Oops. Cargo net and a dock lantern. And C, which is a special item for this particular location, which is an encrusted coin. Alright, and let me place this stuff. So, what did I say? A and D are the items. So A. I also realised that James unfortunately made this one tile too short, so I'm just going to guess that, as I said, this is a prototype. So, so A and D is over there. Okay. And then B is next to A. So we'll put the cargo net here. And C is over here. And E is opposite C. Okay, perfect. Okay, so now this room layout is done. The first thing we do, usually it would be, as I said, an Omen phase first. But for the first turn of a scenario, Charles gets to act first. So the first thing we do is we roll our stamina dice. Oh, that was a pretty bad roll. And what you do is you can either spend your stamina dice, obviously, on interactions or movement. In this particular case, and in terms of movement, you have a maximum of 12 movement points per round. This is just a number that we're using at the moment. It might be lower initially, and then you can upgrade it. Or it might start at this level, and then you can upgrade it further down the line. Still something we're still working out. So I'm going to probably spend a bunch of my low dice on movement. So I'm going to move 1, then I'm going to move 2. Okay, so this is a good example. So although I spent a 2 on the movement, because I'm now going to do an interaction to interact with the coal sack, the extra 1 that I didn't spend is then sacrificed. So I don't get to use that. So for the coal sack, so there's a couple of different interactions I can do here. I can untie it, which is a finesse test using 1d8 plus 3. This is a blind skill test, so I don't get to see the number that I need to beat. Or I can cut it, which will then make the untie much easier. As I've only got a 3 and a 5 left, I think I'm going to... I mean, doing a untie without cutting it first might be a risky move, but let's try it just for the hell of it. So 1d8 plus 3 I need to beat. I'm going to spend my 5 on this interaction. And because this is a basic interaction, I can also then use my my finesse dice as a bonus action, essentially. And this just adds the value after I roll it to the value of the dice I've just spent. So let's hope for a 4. Damn it, I got a 5. Sorry, a 1. So my total is 6, and I now need to beat a 1d8 plus 3. So let's grab a d8. That's a d6, that's a d8. And let's put it here and roll it. Please be a low number. God damn it. Oh no, that's a d10. Let's try that again. Okay. 5 plus 3 is 8, so I didn't pass that. Okay, so but once we've done the skill test, we essentially that gets stuck there. So we know what it is now, at least, if we want to retry it. I think what I'm going to do for my last action die is move away from this location and just get to the other side of this. So 3, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. There we go. And that's the end of this round. So now we pull a Omen card. So we have different omens depending on whether you're outside or inside. So the within the full game, within the video game version, there are specific omens for specific locations as well. So we'll have a bunch of omens that can only trigger on the docks, or a bunch of omens that can only trigger in the town square, or you'll see some of the other locations. So first omen is this one. Let's flip it and have a look. Oh, actually, sorry, I was wrong. We have an intro omen for this particular scenario. So this is the first omen. The boat that carried you to this strange island will not remain at the dock and departs until summoned. apply atmospheric foggy. So the boat leaves, and now we apply the foggy atmosphere. So this is an environmental omen effect. Some locations will already have omens applied to them, or status effects applied to them, essentially. So this particular one, while we're in this room, any vision skill test we do takes a -1 penalty when rolled. What the die does. Okay, so now we reset. Roll my die again. Oh my god, that was slightly better. Not much better, but slightly. Okay, I'm just going to rearrange these and put my 2 5s together. Okay, so next round. So, should I spend another dice trying to beat... Oh, actually, this is supposed to be 8 now. Because it was... we rolled a 5, and it's actually an 8. And we'll use this dice to signify that. And put this one back. So we know that skill test, I need to beat an 8. So that's quite a hard skill test as well. The dock lantern is a bit... So the advantage of doing the dock lantern is it provides a light source. And the light source will counter the foggy. Obviously, that could be good, but saying that, the only skill test that is using vision, which is what the fog affects, is the rusted strongbox. So let's spend my 1 to move down, and then I've got 2 different things I can interact with, and then let's try the cargo net. So it's a search, but it's a visible search. So let's just roll that. So again, 1d8 plus 3. Let's roll it properly. That's more like it. So that's a 5 total. And let me copy this. Oops. And then set that to 5. So in theory, I could just spend a 5. I need to beat the 5, so I will spend my my finesse dice on this. But it's a guaranteed win. So it's the 4, and it means that we've beaten this one. So we've searched this, and we get a gear card. So in the game, some locations will some interactive objects, when you complete a skill test, will give you a random piece of gear. The gear is going to be tiered as well, so obviously a simpler skill test, or a skill test that is visible, generally will reward you a more basic item, whereas more complex skill tests, or multi-step skill tests, or puzzles, they generally reward you with better items and bits of evidence, and you need to find evidence to kind of drive the story forward, and obviously to unlock certain areas of a level, or unlock new kind of like conversation topics for NPCs that you might meet. But for this prototype, essentially you just get gear, which isn't so bad. So I've got a rue herb, a bit of herb that can be chewed for lucky, okay, which removes the jinx. So this is quite handy. So I'm going to slot it and equip it straight away. This means if I get a jinx, I'll be able to remove the jinx within the same turn, which is quite handy. Okay, I've now got... so the issue now, I've spent my finesse dice this round. I could try to make this skill test easier, but maybe I'm better off just moving forward. What do you lot reckon? Actually, is there even a chat for the live stream? Kevin, is there a chat? Can you hear me, Kevin? Oh, right here. Oh, yeah, there is a chat. Yes, nice. Okay. Completely missed it. But yeah. So what do you guys reckon I should do? Shall I stay here and do the brawn skill test on here to try to reduce the finesse skill test to untie this, or should I move forward? What do you reckon? It's a bit like Countdown. Try the test. Okay. Yeah, it's a bit easier. It's a visible one, so I'll be able to see what I need to beat. It's a 1d4 plus 2. Onwards, yes, exactly. So 1d4 plus 2, so let's roll the 1d4. Let's roll it properly. Ugh, a 3. God. What did I say it was? A 3 plus 2, so 5. And it's a brawn skill test. So let's set that to 5. Put it on there. Oh, nope, not on there. It's on there. And what do I have left? So I have a 5 I can spend. Then if I spend it with my brawn, it's a guaranteed pass. So let's do that. I'm going to roll it just because it's fun rolling stuff. Yeah. I was really unlucky the last time I played through this. All right. So what did I say? So I've beaten the brawn skill test, and that means now we get to re-roll the finesse skill test to untie it. So let's do that. So it was a 1d4, and it's a 2, which is so much nicer. So let's reduce that to 2. And do I have a die that I could use to beat that? Oh, I have a 2. But I've already used my finesse. I've already used my brawn. So I'm going to end my turn there, I think, and just hope that we don't get a horrible omen that affects my finesse. So let's do that now. So Omen tier 1, we're outdoors. So we're going to flip this and see what we get. So rolling thunder. There is a distant roll of thunder as the sky itself has spoken. So yeah, one point of note also, this prototype doesn't have like our proper narrative. There's a whole load of like voice lines that Charles says when he's interacting with certain objects. There's a whole load of narrative as you come off the boats, and there's none of the evidence in this particular prototype either. And like the evidence obviously tells a lot of the main story. So it's this prototype is purely the mechanics for investigation and skill tests, but it's still pretty entertaining. I hope. Anyway, so yeah, rolling thunder. So I need to apply the jinx hesitant fumbles. So let's have a look through our status effects. I've forgotten how James does this. Search. Yeah. And what did we say? Hesitant fumbles. So this is the actual effect that we're going to get. And jinxes are applied directly to skill tests, so they affect the value, or the values that we need to beat in the skill tests. So hesitant fumbles, target is, bloody finesse. I mean, luckily we've already rolled the finesse test on this particular skill test on this particular item, so this won't affect that one, luckily. But anyway, so when rolling the test value for a finesse test, the number of faces on the dice are increased by 2. Oh yeah, this was one of the ones that James needed to change because in effect we can't go beyond D20 with dice. This is one of the reasons actually we might be changing from dice for skill tests to some kind of like spinny thingy where the D value can be whatever we want. But yeah, so effectively this would mean that if the skill test is a D4, it goes up to D6. If it's a D6, it goes up to D8, etc., etc. So let's apply this to finesse skill tests, and it lasts for 6 rounds, which is pretty extreme. This is something we're still working out, but we'll leave it as is for now. Dum, 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 dum. 6 rounds. And after every round, this obviously reduces. Now, I could, during my turn, just use this to remove that. So maybe we'll do that in our next turn. So Omen phase is done, and we go back to the prep phase. So we're all prepped already. I haven't got any items that I want to equip or anything like that. So we're gonna reset all these dice, and reset these dice as well. Then roll. Oh my god, my rolls haven't been too good today, have they? Okay, and so for my first action, yeah, I think I'm going to disable that jinx. Now, usually, this isn't in this version of the game at the moment, but usually to use any item, there's usually a cost, like a stamina cost or a core attribute cost. There isn't in this current prototype, but I'm going to just say there is, and I'm going to say I'm going to spend my number 1 dice to use my Rue Herb, and that will disable the jinx. So this can go away, and I've spent this item, and so it goes in the discard pile. I'm then going to spend, I think I've got a 3. Do I have a 3? I have a 4. Wait a second, are there any more? Yes, there is a finesse test there. I think I'll spend my 4. That passes that. So the coal sack I've just untied. And I take a gear card. Let me just shuffle this a bit more. And I got a coin of fate. So coins of fate in the game are a resource that are used for upgrading stuff. So essentially, as you explore the different scenarios, the different levels, there's a Curio Shop that keeps appearing everywhere. There's obviously narrative tied to this, but the Curio Shopkeeper has a number of items that you'll be able to purchase using coins of fate, and you'll also be able to use it to upgrade abilities and stamina dice and all that sort of stuff. You often want to be obviously exploring rooms enough to be able to find as many of the coins of fate so you can upgrade stuff, but at the same time you've also got to be I forgot to do this. How many omens have we had? 1, 2. That was the second one. You also need to be wary of the omen tracker, because obviously the more time you spend in a room, the higher this is going to get. And obviously once you start hitting the tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 omens, things get pretty difficult. So it's really going to be about tactically deciding as a player, like, how much are you going to explore, how much are you going to investigate a room before you move on. With this particular prototype, it's a relatively linear experience. We go from the dock to the causeway to the kiosk and then back to the causeway. In the actual video game version of this scenario, your starting location will be the dock, but then you go to the town centre, and then from the town square, and from the town square there are multiple paths that you can take to be able to explore. But as I said, you can always go back to a previously visited space or room, and this will actually come into play during combat in some interesting ways. But as I said, you need to be careful of how long you spend in any given space, because things start to escalate over time. Anyway, so I've done these two skill tests. I'm now gonna move again, so I can use my 2 dice for movement. 1, 2, and that gives me another 2 things to interact with. So the dock lantern, I think I'll do. So that's a 1d6 plus 2, which is also visible. So that's nice and easy. So 1d6. God damn it. I am pretty unlucky with the rolls. So that's a 7. And I'm I'm going to examine this. Break loose, which is a 1d6 plus 2. So let's roll that again. Yes. So that's a 4. Yeah, it does feel like James has rigged it. It really does. What did I say it was? Oops. Oh, I forgot which button it is. 1d6 plus 2, so 2 plus 2, 4. In the game, obviously, you have a number of different interactions. I mean, I can actually show you potentially the UI. Well, I'll do it in a second. But some interactions are free. So, like, looking at an item is a free action, and you can look at any interactive object in a room from any location within the room. But then you've got an examine action, which generally, in the video game version, uncovers the different ways that you can interact with them. And then, obviously, from there, you unlock, break loose, or say in the case of a door, you might unlock force open, which will be a brawn skill check, pick lock, which would be a finesse or insight skill test, and might require a pick lock item to be able to actually do, and then another action which might be use key, which would be a free action if you've found the key. And this will be kind of the case for a lot of the interactive objects within the space. Like, there's always multiple ways to interact with them, which kind of incentivizes you to upgrade your characters, upgrade Charles in a multitude of different ways, especially as you get further into the game, where certain skill tests will require a brawn level 2 or a finesse level 3 to be able to do that type of interaction. So essentially, it should create a relatively replayable experience for people. So yeah, let's do this brawn skill test. So brawn 1d6 plus 2, which I've already done. So I'm just going to be a 4. So I'm going to spend my 4 and then roll my brawn. Oops. Which it shouldn't matter anyway, because I've got a 4. So one thing in regards to skill tests, so obviously I briefly touched on the point that some skill tests will require a particular core attribute level, but on top of that, skill tests will they come in different flavors essentially. So what we've seen so far are blind skill tests and non-blind skill tests. But there are other skill test types. So there are multi-step skill tests, which are essentially a skill test that once you succeed or fail the initial skill test, it triggers another skill test as part of it, and they might use different core attributes. You also have time-based skill tests. So essentially, something might trigger the skill test to appear, and you've got a certain number of rounds to complete that skill test, otherwise something will happen. Often something quite nasty will happen. Then you have puzzle-based skill tests. So these are often things like sorting. I don't know. One example we have in the prototype, not in this version of the prototype, but in the video game prototype, is a safe combination lock that you need to try to break. And with those, you spend stamina dice to get an X number of turns, very similar to Mansions of Madness, and then you can attempt it a certain number of times. And then we're planning other skill test types as well. Anyway, I got this one, so let's flip this. And what do I get? Oh, I get a coin of. Oh no, did I just do the wrong thing? Yeah, so I got another coin of fate. Perfect. Alright, at this point I think I've used all my dice, so let's tidy up. Well, we got the next Omen, so let's go one up on the Omen tracker, and we choose another Omen. Oops. So a strange scroll. A strange symbol has been scrawled in chalk on the wall as the investigator reads. The unsettled sense has acted upon them in some way. Apply curse. none of us can pronounce this. Crucis Sanguis. All right, Crucis Sanguis. What the hell is that one? Let's have a look. Crucis Sanguis. I nailed it. Yeah, it's all that bloody Latin I've been learning as I've been trying to do the narrative. Nope. How do you spell it? Crocus. There we go. Alright, curse. So curses are applied to dice. And dice slots. So, applied to a random action dice slot. When the contained die is rolled, the result receives a -2 penalty. Oh, that's pretty horrible. So I'm going to use a d4 to determine which slot it goes into. So let's roll this. Slot 1. So it's going to go here. And it lasts for 8 rounds. James, I swear the amount of rounds that these are lasting for are way too long. And I need to use 2 dice for this one as well to keep track. Okay, let's move these over here. Set the value to 4 and the other one to 4. And now when I roll these dice, I receive a -2 penalty. So let's just move these down here. Okay, so this gets reduced from a 4 to a 2. No, another not great roll. Okay. Rusted Strongbox. So, should I... What are you saying, Kev? Not to worry, you can't apply -2 to roll of 1. I'm starting to think James has a bit of a sadist streak. Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, the game is supposed to be hard. It is supposed to be quite an unforgiving experience. But that kind of needs to be countered with, the progression and the items that you gain along the way. Obviously, from a balancing point of view, that not much has been done yet. But the whole point of this experience is to give a little taste of it all. Maybe it's all the blender he's playing. Yeah, no, exactly. Hard is good. I agree. I'm a massive fan of Souls-like games. I'm a massive fan of really hard board games, really complex board games. I want to be punished because, when you do manage to get through, it just ends up feeling so much better, doesn't it? it's how to play. You learn. Yeah, exactly, and that's the great thing. You learn the systems, you learn the gameplay, you learn when to kind of move on, and when to spend time doing things. And I remember a while back, back when we still had the office, we ended up playing a game of the board game Nemesis in the office, and oh god, that game was brutal. We spent 2 hours setting it all up, and then within the first round, I think we got killed by the queen. It was so devastating. I mean, that just kind of really annoyed us. But after 2 hours of setup time, but I've been meaning to actually play it again and actually, not die straight away. I know there's the video game version. I might actually pick up at some point and try it. 'Cause at least then you don't have all the bloody setup time. It's what I like about other games where I'm a big fan of games like Kingdom Death Monster and the game that's Mechs vs Minions, because all of those games, their setup is super simple. The first time you play it, you only have a few things on the table, and then the gameplay kind of slowly unravels, or gives you new things to interact with later on. You're not having to set up hundreds of different boards and lots of little pieces everywhere. Those games, although I enjoy them once they're set up, they're a bloody nightmare to actually get set up in the first place. This is why I kind of feel even with Nightmare Dicebound and we want to obviously be building the video game version and the board game version simultaneously. We need to find better way to track things, better ways to kind of do the skill tests on the board game version. There's still a lot of things to kind of work out. But yeah, Team Nemesis Sesh, yeah, we should do it at some point. Could live stream it as well. Anyway, what am I doing for my next round? So I've got 2, 3, 3, 5. The next one is I think I'm going to just skip the Rusted's box and move forward because I'm already on the third row of the Omens, so it's probably a good idea to move forward. So I'm going to spend what do I need to use? I'm going to spend a 2 to move. So 1, 2. Interacting with that essentially moves me to the next room. So let's do the next room setup. Let's get rid of that. Let's unlock that. This is the problem with Tabletop Simulator, actually trying to clean everything up afterwards is a bit of a pain. Oh god. And then we shift to the pier. Okay, let's tidy that up. I'll put them over there. Put the dock back. And we'll shuffle the pair cards and choose a pair card. So one thing we've already realised, potentially there are too many interactive objects per room. This is something that we realised within our internal testing. But now that James has moved over to the combat prototype stuff, we still felt that it would be worthwhile getting you all to try this version. Because I think there's still some valuable feedback that we could get. Deep Madness. I think I've seen that game. Yeah, Deep Madness. So in terms of James doing some scripting for the TTS, maybe. I mean, it's quite time consuming to get it done. But maybe we'll see. I'd rather kind of us to kind of use the prototypes as a way to kind of drive design decisions forward, rather than spending time making things easy, I guess. At least for the time being, just while we're such a small team. And the fact is, we still haven't got the game funded yet, and that's kind of our main focus at the moment is proving that the game is enjoyable, getting the video game prototype out and into the hands of the community, and then using that to get the game funded, essentially. Once that is done, once we have the game funded, we can then start to think about making, the TTS version a bit more consumable. Anyway, let's set this up. I'm going to put this here again because it makes things easier. So A and D are specific items. So A is coin-operated binoculars. So let's find that. There we go. Coin-operated binoculars. B is a rubbish bin. D is a trapped die. We don't actually use the mechanics for that at the moment, but we'll grab it. What was it? D. Oops. Trapped die. C is a random one of these. Part of scrap. And E is Oops. There we go. So yeah, like within the video game version, also when you travel from one location to another, there's kind of like a little bit of intro narrative that triggers when you go to the from room to room for the first time. We obviously don't have that in this version. Oh yeah, let me change to the causeway. So this is what the causeway actually looks like. So you can kind of get a better idea. Let me reduce the size of that again. What was I doing again? Oh yeah, completely lost my train of thought there. So yeah, let me just set the doorways as well. So there's a three-piece doorway. Is that 3 or 2? I think that's 2. Classic tabletop simulator, everything falling over. And then there is a 3 at the top. So yeah, one of the things also, so every time you play a scenario, the location of things changes. Not just the items within a space, but also the level layouts will change as well. Right now, we're going to be doing this entirely bespoke. So we're not completely procedurally generating levels. I think this is kind of important because we want to be able to control the flow of the narrative and the kind of the groupings of things in a kind of a nicer way. So in theory, like when combined with the randomized object placement and randomized evidence placement, it will feel kind of procedural but controlled and shaped by us, which should hopefully be quite nice. What was the other one? Oh yeah, so oh my god, bloody tabletop simulator. Oh, how do I flip? Okay, I'm just going to put it here and hope for the best. All right. E goes over here. Let me move this over. So E goes here. C. Wait a second. Did I mess something up? Specific any rubbish bin. Okay. So B goes here. C goes here. A is the coin-operated binoculars, so that goes here. And then this goes here. Nice. Okay. So, what we got? So the candle. Cool. Thanks, man. Yeah, like we spent a fair bit of time like trying to get things to feel pretty cool. Obviously the art has to kind of sink in, the music, the dialogue. Yeah, it's true. Like the TTS version, like without the visuals, it doesn't really do it justice at the moment. But the main objective, really, at least in my head, was to try to capture some of that feeling from games like Mansions and Madness, but then provide a solo gameplay experience, and kind of slightly more in depth dice mechanics. I love Mansions of Madness to bits, but I find some of its gameplay a bit surface level. Like our combat systems are going to be a much deeper. Interactions are kind of a lot more deep, much deeper in this. Our levels are probably going to be bigger as well than Mansions of Madness. But admittedly, like right now, I remember the first full version of the TTS version we played. It had the whole level, and I think there's something like 23 different rooms. It took about 4 or 5 hours to play through in total. And that was with less interactive objects than we have here. Like the original TTS version is essentially the version that we're building in Unity with all the narrative-driven components, and I think that's kind of what ends up making it last quite long, because essentially every interaction had like a bunch of dialogue to go with it. We've streamlined a lot of that now, but it was a lot more moody, a lot more. I mean, I can actually read some too. So actually, I'll read you the Causeway intro. 2 seconds. Let me bring up a spreadsheet with all the dialogue. Let me answer that question for you, him, as well. So, is it going to lean towards a roguelite feel as well, considering it's solo only? Yes. So you are going to be expected to die a fair bit. We kind of want, at least for the video game version, so there will be some differences between the board game version and the video game version as we kind of progress forward. The board game version, it's probably going to end up having to be a bit of a more streamlined experience compared to the video game version. The video game version definitely will have that kind of roguelike feeling. So the idea is that, potentially some of the items or things that you upgrade or whatever through a run, you'll keep. But then when a level resets, effectively it gets reconfigured as well. So it's still something we need to work out how to do effectively, and to keep it fun and not frustrating. But that's definitely something that we want to achieve in terms of getting some of those roguelite elements in there. It's going to be a bit of a balancing act, definitely. What was I doing? Getting the script up. I get distracted easily. The intro for the Causeway is: as I reached the top of the stairs, the fog thinned, unveiling the distant silhouette of a postal office kiosk at the far end of the causeway. The ghostly silence continued to cling to the air, casting an oppressive pall over the place. It used to be much longer, and the intro dialogue also described every object in the room, and then we realised, well, actually, if we're going to have randomised objects, that's going to require way too much dialogue, and variances of dialogue. So we've streamlined a bunch of it. Anyway, let me continue here. First thing I'm going to interact with. So I'm not going to do the candle. I don't think we need. Oh, it's trivial though. Okay, bloody hell. Go on then. Might as well. So I spent the 2 to get into this room. I'm going to spend a 3 to move. So 1, 2, 3. I'm going to interact with the candle. It's a finesse test. 1d4. I'm just going to spend a 5. I'm not even going to roll it because that will beat it automatically. Let's flip that. Success. The candle flames flicker, illuminating the scene, removing any darkness atmospherics. The candle. Okay. So actually, there was no point for that because the room was partially lit anyway. There's a bunch of different atmospherics that can happen. So an Omen can make a scene completely dark. It will shut off all the lights in the room, or even outdoors. It can introduce fog. It can introduce like a poisonous mist, which will do health damage. In darkness, you take sanity damage every round as well. So having a light source is really important. In the video game version, we might have a resource for lighting candles. So you need to have matches to be able to light a candle, or if you find a lighter, you have to keep that lighter fueled essentially, in order to light objects. And then eventually you might find a lantern as well, which can be used as a light source that you carry around. But the issue is you've got to keep it in your hand, which means you can only have you can't hold two weapons in that case. Where the lantern can maybe be used as a weapon as well. You could throw it to the ground and set a location on fire. In many ways, we're kind of trying to create an experience that has kind of immersive sim qualities to it. We want players to have a multitude of different ways to interact with any given thing, or kind of come up with their own kind of strategies around how to progress, and then obviously upgrade Charles in certain ways based on the way that they want to play. You might think of Charles as kind of a bit of a ruffian, a bit of a scallywag, as we say here in the UK. So you might invest loads of points into his brawn, allowing you to do a lot of brawn-based skill tests, and then you might be focusing on heavier weapons, unlocking certain weapon abilities that make use of higher levels of brawn. Or you might think of Charles as kind of a bit of an intellect, using occult magics, and so you'll be investing in insight a lot more. He's becomes a bit more of a problem solver, looking at the machinations of the mechanics and the being able to decipher things a bit better. Or you might think of him as a bit of a rogue, and invest in his finesse abilities, allowing him to pick locks easier, or to sneak around in particular locations where there might be too many enemies to engage. So there's a lot of different options, really, like with the way that you want to explore and progress as a player. And our job really is to make sure that there's enough interesting interactions and opportunities for using those different abilities. So, what's he saying? Make sure that for this version, I feel it would make a lot more. So any plans for requirements for combined stats? So yeah, potentially. I mean, we haven't really designed that far yet. I mean, as I said previously, like some skill tests do require the use of multiple core attributes. A good example, actually, back in the dock, in the video game version, you can find that encrusted coin on the ground, and actually the way that version is designed is you use brawn to take it off the ground, but upon doing so, the coin flies out of your hands, and you've got to then use finesse to try to catch it before it drops down between the crevices of the dock. And one thing that I mean, this is still to be designed, but obviously as you level up your core attributes, you can also upgrade the dice within each of the core attribute slots, going from D4s to D12s. Now, some skill tests will require higher level dice anyway. Now, we haven't decided yet whether all the dice can be upgraded from D4s to D12s, or whether your level 1 brawn is a D4, your level 2 brawn is a D6, your level 3 brawn is a D8, etc., etc. Both systems could work and actually would make interactions interesting. But obviously, if you look at the statistics of dice rolls, there might be issues with allowing all dice to be upgraded to the same number of faces. So yeah, we'll have to see. But yeah, in terms of like combat abilities, having combined stats could be super interesting and allow for maybe later game quite complex abilities. For instance, maybe a double shot ability with a pistol, which allows you to shoot two enemies at the same time, maybe it requires both finesse and perception to pull off. Or I don't know, a sequence of punches when you're unarmed might require finesse and brawn. Yeah, these are all things that we can explore, definitely. All right, let's move on. So let's do the rubbish bin. Yeah, exactly. As Emily said, all suggestions are good. This is kind of why we wanted to show this to you guys so early as well. I mean, we have a bucket load of ideas, but what's really important for us is to be making this game with the community, getting your feedback along the whole way. This is something we did with, obviously, Neuroslicers. Unfortunately, that game never got funded. It was the wrong genre at the wrong time for the current state of the industry. We're a lot more confident about this. Yeah, oh, God, I'm still devastated about it. I still massively believe in what we were doing with Neuroslicers. The issue is that it just wouldn't have converted into sales, and unfortunately, the VCs and the investors and the publishers we were speaking to also saw the future of the genre as something that just isn't investable. We've unfortunately seen that with a lot of the more recently released RTS games not doing very well, not really being profitable. Whereas turn-based games seem to be going through a bit of a resurgence. And obviously there's a lot of crossover between the board gaming community and the turn-based tactics and turn-based RPG communities. So there's a much larger, as we say in the industry, addressable market, which makes the game much more investable from a funding point of view. But yeah. Anyway, maybe I should stop here. I mean, what time is it? So it's 6:07. I mean, what I've shown you obviously is really the basics of things. Most of the prototype is kind of like this. Eventually you can head up here to the fish market, or head to the left to the kiosk. The kiosk has some slightly more complex skill tests and puzzles and stuff. But yeah, this is kind of hopefully giving you a bit of an overview of what we're trying to build at the moment. We're going to make this this prototype available on Tabletop Simulator through the Steam Workshop for you to try. There are some rules that James has written kindly. Whether they're perfect or not, I have no idea. But we would love some feedback on the rules as well. If any of you have any issues getting going and playing through it, let us know on the Discord, and we'll try to chime in and kind of explain things to you. But yeah, thank you so much for tuning in, everyone. If you guys have any follow-up questions or anything like that, let me know. I'm always online, so I'm sure you'll it won't be too long before I answer your question. But yeah, thanks again. So yeah, take care everyone, and good night.